G'day, Bomber fans. Well, we are back. You know what? No, we're here for the first time because I feel like this is the first proper long-form player ratings video. Because, you know, it's all well and good after the practice matches. Those don't really matter. But you know, after round one of the AFL season against a rival, this is where there's going to be some discourse in the comments, I reckon. Before we start, I guess I should say individuals didn't lose us this game of footy. Hawthorn just won it with a better list and a better system. I'm not trying to go off at anyone or you know, throw anyone under the bus. If I've rated someone harshly, it's probably because I expect a lot from them and I like them as a player. And yeah, I mean, let's be nice in the comments. It's of course fair to be critical about a player's performance. That is what I'm doing here. But let's be constructive with that criticism. We don't, you know, we want to keep the vibes. Also check out my match review that I released on Saturday. There's still time to leave your votes in the comments for that, for the Everything Essendon Player of the Year award. That'll be tallied up on Tuesday when I record the Crows preview, because that's going to be a big game. They looked good, the Crows. I'm recording this on Sunday. I've just finished watching all the games. And by the way, for those keeping track with the Melbourne and St Kilda seasons, because we hold their draft picks, good start. Good stuff, GWS and Adelaide. We love you. All right, let's start with Andy McGrath, who, yeah, I mean, this guy was like the most controversial player every week, but I feel like he was, again, the most talked about player in a negative light on Friday night. So I haven't replied to comments in my review video just because it, you know, helps with keeping track for the votes. But I did go through quite a lot of them, and I saw an overwhelming amount of McGrath hate in particular. I mean, yeah, this happens, and it is fine after he played a stinker. Oh, it's not fine, but, you know, it happens after he plays a stinker. But I'm going to annoy a few people here. I don't even think he was that bad. I thought he made some mistakes against the Hawks. He ran himself into trouble once or twice. He had that kick smothered by Mabior. There was a clanger coming out of defence in like the second or third quarter where it just made me rip all my hair out, and my hairline was already bad enough as it is. I don't think he played that well. I'm giving him a 6 out of 10, but I don't think he was as horrible as what people are making it out to seem. The mistakes he made were made by other players too. People claimed his ball use was horrible, and he had the seventh best disposal efficiency in the team, while also going at 450 metres gain. So he wasn't just going sideways kicking. He was actually progressing us forward too with a decent disposal efficiency. And defensively, I feel like we conceded a lot of goals to their small forwards, but I looked back on all the goals we conceded, and McGrath isn't actually accountable for many of those. I feel like people need to chill out with the McGrath hate. Again, I don't think he was that good. I was disappointed he wasn't better, because he's our vice-captain, and I hold him to a pretty high standard, which is why, you know, despite an okay game, he still gets the 6. But yeah, there's no way he was the problem at all. I find it weird that this guy gets the hate he does. I mean, I don't know. He made his fair share of mistakes, but to call out McGrath is the only problem, because there's so many of those comments where it's just about McGrath. You know, that's I feel like that's just a quick fix and someone to blame for fans. But I mean, it just hides the problems we have as a team, because he is far from the only issue. For him to be the most, you know, talked about topic for some, it just is strange, because there's so many things that are worse with the team than Andy McGrath. But yeah, moving on from the most topical player, the rest of the video is going to be less interesting from here. Sam Draper, I mean, yeah, he came in with a plan to really limit the impact of Lloyd Meek. Both our rucks did. I thought Nic Martin did that as well, and that was a win. Meek was nowhere near as good as he was against the Swans last week. He was a big worry for me before the game, so to cut him out, that is good. Cut that guy out of there. In open play, I thought Draper was really damaging too. Just one more disposal than Meek, but I feel like there was a big impact differential. You know, he had the 1 goal, the 2 behinds, 5 tackles. 5 tackles for a ruck is really good. That's And you know what? This is the kind of game, or it's almost the kind of game I wanted from Draper. I've talked about him rising to be that mature ruck, not that flashy one. And for 90% of the game, he was doing that. He was just doing really good ruck work. He was grinding it out, limiting the impact of a good ruck, getting on the scoreboard, being dangerous. But then there were those few times where the old Draper crept in, and it's so annoying. Gosh darn it, Draper. You know those moments where, he's like a 50 out from goal, and he could lower the eyes and find a target, but the guy just, I don't know, he does the Draper, the special where you belly the ball straight in the air. Yeah, I know. It just happens, like, 2 or 3 times a game where he could be doing something effective and not boring, but something simple and effective. He could be doing that, and he just tries to bite off a bit more than he can chew, and it doesn't go right. Yeah, I feel like if he just cuts out those moments, makes them the boring ones instead, the not the goal of the year moments, then I feel like he'd be an 8, because his impact already is so strong without those moments. He doesn't need to be that highlights reel player, and that's what I like about most of his game on Friday, is that he was just going about it and being gritty and grindy against a really good ruck. I'm giving him a 7, but yeah, we're seeing potential for an 8. He just needs to keep cutting those bloody moments out of his game. Gosh darn it, Sam. Cole Langford, this one hurts. I mean, yeah, he was doing well until his injury too. He was hitting the scoreboard, and he was hitting the scoreboard at important times. I feel like both his goals were necessary. I think the second was our second of the game when we'd conceded like 7 in a row, and then he had that set shot late as well. Well, not late, but before his injury. He was also getting involved as the link in a chain when we were going forward. Although I did think our transition got going after he went off, but I don't think that was his fault. I think that was just coincidence because it was later in the game and both teams were getting more tired. And if anything, that's probably how important it would have been to have him on, because he would have been just as dangerous, if not more, as the Hawks and Bombers ran out of legs. Obviously, that hamstring injury just came at a horrible time. It was a lovely half volley pickup too, which is annoying because it's a good little highlight and he does his hamstring from it. So yeah, he'll be out for 4 to 6 weeks now, which is just not good because you cannot replace him. So it's going to be really interesting to see how we go without him. And not to talk about things that aren't Langford here, but so we've lost Langford, who kicked 50 and odd goals in 40 and 50 in 2023. Lost Stringer, who was obviously our second highest goal scorer. Wright, who had that big 2022 season. And Guelphy as well, who's been consistently amongst the top. So I wonder how many players we have in our team that have actually scored goals. So I actually can't, Gresham, but even he's inconsistent. So that's what, I'm worried about in the next few weeks. But yeah, Langford gets a 7, but that injury is just shocking because that was our only recognised fit goal scorer that I can think of. Elijah Tsatas, I just didn't think he looked like he was at the next level that we want him to get to. And honestly, I don't hate that. I know people were frustrated with his game, but really this was his first game with full midfield minutes, and that's tough. It's really not easy for someone that young and that fresh into this, proper style of the game. It's not easy to go up and overcome guys like Newcomb and come out on top. It's some can do it. Some draftees take no time, but again, look at what Reid did on the just today. He had 12 disposals. So, and he's one of the most hyped up kids in the land. So yeah, these guys are going to have down days, and I don't even think Tsatas had that down a day. There was quite a lot about his game that I really liked. He only played about half of game time and still came out with 18 touches with 5 clearances. Although I do think those clearances were stoppage clearances, which were easier to get with that outnumber that we had for most of the game. But yeah, I thought he was a bit defensively unaware at times at centre bounces, which hurt us a little bit because the Hawks got some really easy goals from them. And it also, it goes without saying, but his disposal was really not ideal because, you've got these players like Merrett and Caldwell in the guts who they get those centre clearances with direction. They have the ball and they take those steps before making the decision and putting a kick in. But Tsatas, he's really good at positioning himself to be in a situation like that. But then he gets the ball and he doesn't really. I guess he rushes his disposal. He's so good at everything else, but he just rushes the disposal. He could take that extra 2 or 3 steps that has gives him the separation for a relatively uncontested kick or disposal. But instead, he gets the ball and just puts it to boot straight away, which, it's often straight in the air. So, yeah, I think once it's not even a disposal thing. I think it's just maturity, and that's going to be brushed out of his game as soon as he gets familiar with what it takes to be that, level midfielder right in the engine room. Because, again, this was his first game there. So, yeah, he had some promising aspects to his game. He was around the ball a fair amount, but, yeah, it wasn't great with what he did with it. I'll give him a 5, but I can understand why you want to give him a 6 or a 7. I wouldn't understand if you want to give him any less than a 5, considering just how fresh he is to that role. Alright, Jye Caldwell, I'm going to give him a 9. I've got 9 down, but now I'm thinking 10, because I'm looking at those stats again. I don't know, it's tough. It's because for a 10, I feel like you would have to be the 3 Brownlow vote getter. I feel like, yeah, you wouldn't give, or at least me, the way I'm doing this, I don't think I'd give multiple players a 10 unless it was, unbelievable. And I don't think that there's necessarily a 10 in every game for either team. But the 10 would have to be the 3 Brownlow vote getter, you think. And is that Caldwell? I mean, for Brownlow votes, it probably is. But I mean, like, for proper impact, Carl Amon was awesome for Hawthorn. Dylan Moore was great. They were on the winning team too. So, I don't know. I think he was arguably best on ground. But I don't know if he was, quite at the 10 vote range. Oh, I don't know. I can understand why you'd want to give him 10. Let's just give him 9. I'm going to stick with my notes. But he was amazing. It felt like a proper statement game. 36 disposals, a goal, 10 clearances, 17 contested possessions, all those tackles. His attack all night. I feel like he's almost our second most passionate player after Merrett, and that's why many people think he should be in the leadership group. And some will say, what do we know as fans? And I will often say that, that the club makes the right decision. But I almost feel like because he might not be a leader on the training track, but there is leadership in the way he plays on the field, just the way he goes about it. I love, us fans love to see the effort and intent that he gives, because you can tell that he actually cares about winning and he cares about the club. And I feel like that has to rub off on players on the field as well. So that to me is leadership, and it's why many, were surprised he wasn't in the leadership group. He could definitely be there next year, especially if he keeps playing like that. It's not the 36 touches, it's the way he gets those touches. Zach Merrett, he gets an 8. I thought he was just awesome as usual. He really got us going early. There was talk of a potential tag with Hawthorn. I remember that in the pre-match coverage, but then he was just everywhere in that first, doing heaps for us around the ground, trying to give us some creativity. I thought his midfield work was good. It wasn't great. It was just good. But yeah, up forward, I was actually really impressed with that, because, everyone loves the idea of Merrett as a forward. On paper, it works because he applies really great pressure. He gives us really good ball use in and around the arc, but his goal kicking has never quite been there. He's never quite had that confidence. On Friday night, he kicked 2 really nice goals at good moments, and it was the fact that he, especially with that first goal, it looked like he was just eyeing up the sticks, and that never really happens with Merrett. You feel like when he scores, it's usually because it's the last thing he can do. He will always try and give it off to another player where he can, and that's definitely a confidence thing. But yeah, you felt like he was trying to own the moment and kick those goals, and he did it. So yeah, he was second best on ground for me. He needs to really keep doing that in the forward line, because if he does that, he's a really, really, right up there in the Brownlow race. I think that's what he's been missing his whole career with that, is the ability to hit the scoreboard going forward. Ben Hobbs, to cut him some slack, this is a midfielder being played as a forward, and this is why I was a bit confused with the Gresham sub, because, if we were playing Hobbs where we would have played Gresham anyway, and I feel like we were missing so much of what Gresham has to offer, and if we stayed fit, I reckon Gresham probably would have come on for Hobbs anyway as the sub. I do think Hobbs was one of the guys around the ground for us having less of an impact. I really liked his pressure. There was good parts of his game. I liked his pressure. The defensive side of his game was pretty decent. He had 5 tackles inside 50. That is really good. And that's why I've given him the pass. I feel like if you rate his game 50-50 on attack and defense, he gets a 4 or a 5 out of 5 for defense. Because, he was doing really good things for us defensively. But I don't really... Yeah, he was. I have in my notes. Everything I have in my notes is about his defensive side of his game, because he wasn't doing enough for us inside the forward half with ball in hand, and he wasn't getting his hands on the ball enough when we had it, and that was the issue, because we needed that link to be in the chain on the half forward line to be bringing us the ball forward, and I felt like other players were doing it. I felt like Gresham did it really well when he came on. But Hobbs just, I don't know. I liked plenty of what he did defensively. I just feel like he was so clearly a midfielder playing out of position as a forward. I just feel like he wasn't getting involved in the game enough. I don't blame him for that, because he's playing out of position, and the things he could do well for us, he did really well. But even those things, we were kind of killed out of defense anyway, so it was all in vain. Maybe if we were better as a team, I would probably view his game better. Maybe. Dylan Shiel, this is a guy we can definitely blame for having a down game, because I think we were all expecting a lot from Shiel off halfback. So it was really disappointing to see most of his game just kind of got 50%. we never really saw that dare and that drive that we needed against a team like Hawthorn. If we were ever going to get our game going off transition, we needed Shiel to be providing run and overlap like Amon was down the other end. But, Shiel just wasn't. He got similar amounts of the footy to Amon. I'm sure their fantasy scores would be close, but he didn't progress the ball that much at all. If you're a halfback flanker whose game, like Shiel, is built around moving the ball forward and being direct, then you need more than 400 meters gained. You need to be pushing like 500 meters gained. But Shiel was in the 300s, and I know it's just a stat, but it does tell you a bit. He was going sideways. He wasn't taking risks. He wasn't injecting his own leg speed into it either. He made some mistakes here and there, but that doesn't bother me as much if he's actually trying to get creative with the ball. For me, the issue is Shiel was just not really trying anything. I would much have rathered he gets 23 touches and turns it over 10 times, but is actually trying something with those touches. Because on Friday, I feel like we just saw a player not too sure of himself in the new role and that wanted to play it a bit safe, which is weird because all preseason he has looked at home and looked like one of our best players. So, yeah, I expect him to bounce back. I expect us to see the vision a bit. But yeah, it wasn't there on Friday night, unfortunately. I'm going to give him a 4. But yeah, we should persist with this experiment for a little bit longer, I think. Isaac Kako, I thought he was good. First game, which is great always. And, low expectations for a player in their first game. But I thought he looked at home. He was energetic. He was clearly requiring attention from their defenders. There was respect shown to him, which for a first gamer is always a huge sign. That is big. And that goal was just elite. And that's something we've been missing, that little something out of nothing player, because since McDonald, Tip and Woody retired, or even before he retired, but when he had that injury, we haven't had someone for about 4 years in that role. So now we've got someone who can just score even when you don't think they can. So yes, he was a little bit quiet as the game went on, but I thought the signs were there. For the most part, his pressure was okay. He was involved in other scores too, not just his own. I like the fact that it was a decent game. And yeah, because I feel like with Kako, it could be either a poor game where he doesn't do much or a 3-goal rising star nomination kind of game. That's the vibe I was getting with his season. He would be inconsistent with it. But to see him kind of, bottom out at getting a 6 out of 10, I would be very happy if this is one of his, poorer games or just the standard, the basement level standard. If he can keep playing like this and throw in about 5 or 6 really, really eye-catching games, and that's already a sign that we have a good player. Because yeah, we don't know where his ceiling is yet for the season for his quality right now. We don't know if that's his bottom. We don't know if it's his peak. But I'm going to give him a 6 out of 10 for now because I think we can see him do better than that. Jade Gresham, I'm going to give him a 7. I thought he proved the coaches wrong, but this is a funny one. So if he comes on as the sub and has the impact he does, which he did, is that good coaching or is it bad coaching for the club not starting him to begin with? I feel like some would argue that it is good coaching, but I feel like Gresham kind of proved that he should have been started. And obviously, yeah, he could have done more for us attacking than Ben Hobbs early. But again, there was that difference in pressure. I think Gresham was okay when he came on pressure-wise, but most of his game when he came on was about being that link in the chain and being attacking and progressing the ball forward. He was often finding space on that far coverage side wing as a high half-forward flanker and allowing his defender to, I guess, be accountable. And that's something that Ben Hobbs just intrinsically can't do because he's not a forward. Jade Gresham is someone that you kind of have to be wary of as a defender. You can't go off them too much because, he showed what he can do. He can progress the ball forward. He can be dangerous with it. At his best, he's playing like that. He played a half a footy. His stats don't look good, but in a half, that's 12 touches, a goal, 4 score involvements. That's a really decent half a footy, and it's the things he was doing with the ball as well. Even the 12 touches, I felt like he had more than that. I thought he was having a real impact for us when he came on, and that's the commentators were saying the same thing. I'm giving him a 7 from that. I thought there was a really impactful sub role. He definitely has to start against the Crows though. If he's sub against the Crows and Ben Hobbs or someone's playing out of position in the forward line, I'm gonna give Scott I'm going to text him I'm going to give him a stern talking to. I don't have his number. Jordan Ridley, yeah, what do you even say? I mean, he was okay when he was playing. 5 out of 10, but yeah, it's just the injury. And the annoying thing about the concussion is that, what was it, 3 and 4 years, but 2 of those were just not really avoidable. They were, dog acts from the other team. There was that Rioli swinging arm, and he got suspended for that. And then Scrimshaw lazily tries to act like he's going for the ball and swings his arm at Ridley's head. And you can't say that wasn't intentional. He's clearly trying to... I don't want to say anything, but, he's either one of the most uncoordinated defenders to ever play footy, or he's trying to make contact with the player. So I think that's a deserved suspension. Maybe not 3 weeks, but, it's not good. And the annoying thing is, this is someone who's now had 3 concussions, and 2 of them just didn't need to happen at all. You can't avoid that as a player, either of those. So yeah, we hope that Ridley's doing all right. We need him back out there for the team, but obviously we can't rush anything with a head knock like that. So we hope he doesn't get any more, because that would start to be a worry for his career, and we already have that happening with Nick Cox. So yeah, not good. He gets a 5 out of 10 though. Moving on, Archie Perkins. If you look at his game on paper, the facts and figures, the facts of life, you'd say around a 7. But that is why I feel like the vibe test is the most important thing here, because I love the fact that he there was a big FU there, kind of half it felt, because this guy, there are many who question his passion and desire as a player. There are some saying he does it, for the paycheck. We all, I'm not saying this myself, but we all see the comments about Perkins. There is definitely the criticism of him being a floater. So to see him on 3 disposals at halftime after a good preseason, there was probably already talk online about, what was happening with him. But to see him go out there and just have that, he freed himself up after halftime, after that early negating role. He became that dangerous player again. That was awesome. I thought he was our best after halftime, to be honest, or just about there, because he ended the game with 22 touches, a goal, 4 clearances, 9 score involvements. That's just a good game in general. But when you remember that he had 3 touches to halftime, it's a really promising half of footy, and it felt like a statement, because we needed someone to stand up, and Perkins was the guy to do that. He's had really good games when we didn't need him to, but I feel like, even though we got the loss, we needed him to step up, and he did step up. So yes, it didn't really matter in the end, but to see him have that response after halftime, after the slow start, that is very promising. I don't think we're talking about that enough. I think I'm really excited to see what he can do next, because I think that was a really mature game from Perkins, and that was not the vibe I was getting at halftime. So yeah, to be praising him this much after the notes I have about his first half, that is really good. Archie Roberts, Archie to Archie. I thought Archie Roberts was good, and I feel like we're already starting to raise expectations a bit, which I really like, because these guys, they're playing in their first 2 seasons. You're always gonna when you rate them, you're always gonna forget about the bad and focus on the good. But with Roberts, we're already being critical. So I saw some lapses in concentration a few times in the back half, which is not ideal on a strong forward line, and that's probably why I'm not bumping him up to a 7. But I still really liked most of what we saw from Roberts. I feel like, with young players early into their lifespan, you usually rate them based on the good things and forget about the bad. But now I am in my notes talking about the bad, and that is, I don't know if you guys understand what I'm getting at, but it's a really promising step for Roberts. I think he's really building into a decent player and not just a promising one. A lot of what he did was really good, and it just felt like, again, I'm saying felt like they're at home a bit, and what does that even mean? But for first or second year players, for them to be fitting into the team like Roberts did on Friday night, that is really promising. No second year blues at all. For me, he's already a best 23 player now, or maybe not cemented there, but he's in our future. I feel like we all know this. He's going to be a big part of our future, so we're already being a little bit critical of him. I like that. Or I am, at least. I don't know about you guys. Sam Durham. This was another interesting one, because I have some Hawthorn mates who watched the game, and they were actually critical of Durham's performance, and that made me think, do Essendon fans glaze Durham? Did he have the impact that we expect from him? And I don't know. I feel like in a few ways, yes, in a few ways, no. So he was obviously less flashy, and obviously not at that all-Australian standard that many were saying he could be at. And that is mostly just the media putting expectations on him. Kane Corner said he could be an All-Australian player. I don't know, maybe he can, but I feel like that's not what we should expect every game. What we should expect is exactly what he gave us against the Hawks, to be honest, because he was just, he was gritty, he was hard at it, he was that contested ball. He didn't do anything flashy, he didn't get any highlights, but I mean, he just goes so hard at the footy. Really early, there was that contest, that hip and shoulder on, I think it was Lloyd Meek or someone, much bigger than Durham, where he kind of slid in there and made them feel it. It's things like that us Essendon fans would notice that the Hawks don't, and it's something that the players would notice too, and they'd buy into that energy. So I think that is exactly what we need from Durham each game, bringing that energy. Maybe this particular Durham game is one that, neutral fans wouldn't have noticed as much, but for me, I thought Durham was really decent. 23 touches, mostly handballs. It wasn't a sexy game or anything. He didn't impact up forward, but I thought he was hard at it. He did most things right. Got us first use on more than a few ground ball contests, which is really ideal against a team like Hawthorn. So yeah, I think a 7's fair. I'd say he's definitely in our top 10 players on the night. But yeah, let me know what you think. I don't know. Was this just something that someone noticed from a different club, or is this an Essendon thing only? I don't know. Harry Jones, this is a good little patch we've got here. Yeah, I really liked what I saw from Harry Jones. I thought our wings had the upper hand, which is good because, there was much talk about Massimo D'Ambrosio last year, and I don't mind Harry Morrison either as a player. But yeah, I thought Duursma and Jones, and you know what? I don't even think Jones was full-time wing minutes either. I think we saw a real good split between forward and pushed up the field, and that's what I like. I like seeing him feature heavily in both positions. I don't want to see him play out one for 80% of the game and one for 20%. I want, the minimum to be 30 for both spots, because he is a dangerous option in both areas now. And he's a genuinely decent player. He had the 14 touches, 11 kicks, a goal. He had, okay stats. But much like with Draper, who I spoke of before, I feel like his touches do have weight to them. He's always busy. He's always, looking forward and looking to put us in better positions. And, something that I noticed with not Duursma, what's his name? Jones, that I don't notice with other players, and this is a really cool thing about him, is that he's got confidence in his game, but it's a very measured confidence. So he's not, he's not going to do the things that he shouldn't be doing. He knows where his limits are, and he usually, he can do a lot of good things. He's a very athletic player. He's a very good mark, but he never really does things that he shouldn't be doing. I really like that about him. I think he's got real confidence in his game now and in his role in the club, and I think he's going to have a good year. He was our role player last year in the Everything Essendon votes. He got the role player vote from oh no, he didn't actually. Sorry, I gave it to Gresham, but I think at the time of filming, the community counts are going to Jones, which I think is fair. I think both of them deserve it, to be honest. They both deserve one each. So yeah, let's hope. And if you want to vote on that and vote Jones as the role player, you can still go do it now in the match review. I'll tally that up on Tuesday. But yeah, Jones gets a 7 out of 10. Nic Bryan. I thought Nic Bryan looked alright. I was a little bit worried about how he'd go against Lloyd Meek, who's a very strong and very good ruckman. But I thought he evened out. And you know what? Bryan is a decent ruck now. He's not even at that promising stage. I think he's just decent. So he rucked less than Draper, 55 to 48 contests. But Bryan had a pretty convincing win record, 60%, 29 hitouts, 9 to advantage. He was good in the ruck. Around the ground, he was quite early, but he did pick up a bit in that last quarter. I think he must have had 5 or so disposals. But yeah, I still do wonder about what we do with him when he isn't rucking, because he doesn't really impact when he isn't doing the tap work. I do like seeing these decent games where he and Draper combine to nullify the impact of a good ruck. But there goes my Xbox. I'm looking forward to the Port Adelaide game where in round 3 where they don't have a recognised ruck, because we need the both of them against Meek. We need the both of them against even against O'Brien next week. But how is Bryan utilised when we're playing a team that doesn't have an elite ruck that warrants attention? That's what I'm interested to see in the next few weeks, because yeah, I think we just need to see a little bit more out of his game. His strengths are all based around his rucking and what he does when he is in that midfield. Even around the ground, he's usually picking up the ball around that wing where he is that outlet ruck target. But yeah, when he's resting, it's either on the bench or he's not really involved. So we need to see more out of him as that resting ruck, because, you know, as I talked about in the preview, it is just important to be an effective player resting than when you're in your best position, and that is what Merrett showed on Friday as well. Here we go. So Jaxon Prior, this is So my boy Jaxon, and this is where many are going to have issues with the rating systems, because it could easily feel like I'm taking shots at players, giving them bad ratings. But as I said, this is because I have high expectations for him. You know, and you know, you all know that I like Prior. I've talked him up all preseason. He's my boy. And I still think he can be a really solid player back there for us. There are some calling him to be dropped. That is ridiculous, especially after everyone glazed him after the Geelong practice game. There's clearly a player there. We all know that. But yeah, I give him a few more weeks before you drop him. I especially at this stage of the club's development. This is where we want to be persisting with players a little bit. But yeah. That was not a good game. He was out of sorts. It started with that one-on-one against Ginnivan. That was a really surprising loss, how he just let Ginnivan body him. And then from there, I mean, he was poor defensively. That's a nice way to put it. I know a few of you will say more in the comments. But yeah, I thought he was probably the weakest link of the Bomber players. And again, that sounds really harsh. I'm not trying to be mean. He would probably be the first to admit that. I think he just got into a bit of a rut and had so much pressure on him by those smaller, faster forwards. He was just not defending the way we needed him to. And if we're going purely from a defensive standpoint, he'd probably be like a 2 out of 10. And I don't even think that's me being harsh. I could probably point to about 5 or 6 moments that really cost us, but I've bumped him up to a 3 because he was actually using the ball nicely when he had it. He's a player who can be trusted by foot, and he had the best disposal efficiency of anyone on our team, I believe. And, 11 disposals, 10 kicks, that's kind of what you need in a good defender. What we need, though, out of the good defender is for him to actually defend well. So I'm giving him a 3. I guarantee you he's going to bounce back and be at least a 5 next week against the Crows. He won't have another bad game. He's definitely not the type. Mason Redman. Funny old game, this one, because, I don't know. He started in the midfield, playing on Will Day, tagging him a bit, and then we threw him back out of CBAs after quarter time. He was still trying to feature on Day as much as he could when they were near, but it wasn't like he was following him. And I like that as a tag, kind of like a convenience tag where when you play on them when they're near you, but you don't go searching. I think that works. And to be fair, Day did have a pretty quiet night, and a lot of that was because of Redman. He didn't crack 20 disposals. He wasn't a major threat up forward. His only goal came from a lucky free kick against Sam Draper. So that part of Redman's game was really strong. Because of that defensive role, it is hard to judge him on the amount of footy he won or what he did with it in the back half. Because that's usually how we judge Redman. But his game's grown or developed a bit. He's more versatile now, so yeah, it's going to be a lot harder to rate him game by game. As for this game, I thought he was pretty good. I gave him a 7. I think it would have been very noticeable if he wasn't playing, because you would notice the impact that the players he was playing on have. Yeah, say play as many times as you can. It does make me wonder if he's going to be playing on Jordan Dawson next week, because Dawson is arguably a more threatening option than Will Day. He looked really good against the Saints, and he's someone that can play in a number of different roles too. He can rest in defence, rest forward in the midfield. I think it's time for a water break. All right, how are we going for time? Oh, we're doing it right, guys. We're getting through it. If you're still here, how crazy was that maths episode last night? Wowee. I actually haven't seen the episode yet. There is that drama with Dave and Jamie though. Oof. And that's for all you who asked to hear more about maths. It'll be a regular feature in these videos. Nate Caddy, brutal start to the year. The bloke cops an all-time corky from James Sicily. That quad is going to be pretty sore. Credit to him. I mean, he played through the game with a dead leg. I honestly, when that happened, I thought we would rest him, and for the Crows, because he's such a young player, but he pushed through, so that's great. And he was clearly impacted by it too. He was playing sore. He was also in a forward line against some of the best defenders on his own at times, pretty much as a marking target, because obviously Langford went down, so that didn't help. But yeah, he held his own. He didn't kick a goal, and he didn't really get a chance. But for him to go out and take 4 contested marks against guys like Barras, that is awesome. That is a 19-year-old outmarking a mature defender, a really good mature defender. So that is massive. If we can get someone else in that forward line, another marking target, even Peter Wright, that is going to make life so much easier for Caddy, because right now he is a 19-year-old having to play on the opposition's best key defender. So he really isn't going to score that much or get that many looks on goals. But yeah, games like this where he shows that he's willing to grind it out and fight through a hard matchup with a massive corky, that's really promising. So yeah, more of that, Nate Caddy. 6 out of 10, but yeah, it's better than a 6. Zach Reid, I'm going to give Zach Reid a 5. Look, the main thing is that he is still alive. He is breathing. That is perfect. That's all that really matters. And, I think we do have to... Yeah, there's people talking about Reid and his performance. We do have to remember that this guy hasn't played footy properly, or at least footy as a key defender properly in 3 or 4 years. I can't remember. So 2022, he did play a few games with Ben Rudden, but he was playing key forward for a few of those. And I don't remember if he played the whole year as a key forward. It may have been 2021, the last time he played as a key defender. If not, 2022, or the last time he finished a game as a key defender, I should say. Because, yeah, he obviously out for 2023, and then he played 20 minutes in 2024. So he hasn't played a full AFL game as a key defender in years. So we need to cut him some slack. He's obviously going to be very rusty this early into the season. And to make life worse for him, we had a very tall defence going up against a very fast and small forward line. So there was always a genuine proper mismatch with Reid. He was on Ginnivan at one stage. So the fact he didn't get completely trounced on ground level, that is already a tick. And he didn't lose too much in the air either. So I think that's ideal. I thought he was also pretty good when Ridley went off. But yeah, I thought there were a few times where there was quite a bit of a space afforded to his opponent, or just around him in inside 50. I feel like that was something I've talked about a bit as well with his defending. Something he needs to work on, getting that initial body contact. And I mean, it is harder with a forward line like this because it's just such a strange forward line for Reid and other tall defenders to be playing on. I thought it was a really tough night for the key backs. We cut him a bit of slack there. But yeah, he wasn't bad. I'll give him a 5. But next week against the Crows, he's going to be really under the microscope because they have a proper key forward line. So I think we're going to be talking about Reid and the other key defenders a lot more next week. And I guess that brings us to Benjamin McKay, Big Ben. Really similar games. I'm going to bring McKay down from a 5 to a 4 because I've got them both as a 5 here just because their games are really similar in output. I honestly, McKay's is probably a tad better at face value because he had the 3 intercept marks, 2 of which were contested. I believe based on champion data, he was also rated a bit higher too, but I don't really care about champion data. That's just me giving you nonsense. But yeah, I feel like he had the slightly better game than Reid, but because of his status at the team and his role, we need to be seeing him do more with the attacking side of his game because that is what he is in the team to do. He is one of the best intercept markers and intercept defenders in the league. That is not me saying that. That's just like truth by facts. In the last few seasons, go look at the intercept possession and marks tallies across the comp, and he's right up there. But yeah, he just wasn't doing it enough on Friday against the Hawks, and we really needed him to because the Hawks defenders were doing the same down the other end. We needed McKay to be a lot stronger in the air than he was, and he just, he did an okay job, and we needed him to do a good or a great job. I thought he rallied a bit in the second half because he obviously only had 1 disposal at halftime, I think, or something like that. But I thought he rallied a bit in the second half when Ridley went down, but also I feel like that was because he was forced to, because just we didn't have enough there. So I guess he can take confidence from that he can be that good defender. And I don't get why this lack of confidence has come about. I do get it. He really hasn't had a preseason, and I know people talk about Caldwell and say the same thing, but it is hard for a key defender to come back after not having a preseason. We can point to so many examples where key defenders struggle to impact in a game or two early. I think we'll see him. He's definitely going to be an important one against the Crows because they've got those key forwards that we have to deal with. But yeah, I don't think that McKay's an issue or anything like people are saying. I'm giving him a 4, but yeah, next week's more important. And finally, to Nic Martin, I thought Nic Martin was good. Funnily enough, we did miss him off half-back a bit because, obviously there were some down players. But I really liked him in the forward half. 24 touches, and 4 of them, just 4 came behind the square on the D50 side. So he was primarily around the wings in the forward half, which is where he's better used. And he was really involved going forward. He had the 7 inside 50s. 8 score involvements. Ideally, he's getting, 8 inside 50s and 9 score involvements. I mean, it's still a good game. It wasn't a great game, but it was a good game. He was crafty, and he made us a more dangerous team going forward, which is exactly what we need him to do, especially without the forward half firepower. I think he's going to have to be hitting the scoreboard himself a bit more in the coming weeks without the personnel that with the personnel we've lost in the forward half. But yeah, I didn't quite get to that All-Australian standard that I think we'll see him get to soon. But I don't doubt he's going to get there. I'm going to give him a 7, but I don't think it's long until we're starting to talk about 8s and 9s. But yeah, those are my ratings. Longer video, I think. Tired video. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. There's maybe a few controversial ones, so let me know if you disagree with anything. And remember, be nice. These are players, but they do have feelings. So you can criticise their performance, but don't be a poo bum. That is all. Cheers for watching, Bomber fans. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new to the channel, and as always, go Bombers. Hello, Felix from the future here. I did skip over Xavier Duursma. I'm gonna give that guy an 8. Yeah, goodbye.